Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo, and tonight I'm joined by Rooster, Poobah, Senator, Pagoda, Grinder, and Bam Bam. A full house of lizards. And our plan is to smoke a cigar, drink some scotch, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 11th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. Plan to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a Cuban cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. Poobah will also give us some history on Bolivar, and we'll dig into our love of Macallan single malts, all among a variety of other things for the next hour. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we pair Bolivar's Belicosos Finos with 12-year aged Macallan Scotch. Man, this cigar is... We smoke it a lot in this group, don't we? I mean, everybody has...
Oh, I certainly do.
Yeah, I smoke quite a few of these. I mean, what a brilliant cigar, a classic cigar. What do you... let's cut it and see what we're getting on the cold draw here.
Let me see your cut, guys.
Oh my God! Look at that.
Proper cut.
What the heck?
That's it.
Come on.
We've taught him well.
Guys,
he's
I
learned.
told you
learning.
I'm evolving. I don't know why you guys don't believe me, but I am evolving. What are you guys getting on the cold draw here?
Cedar.
Petrichor.
Cedar and like nougat. Like it's weird. Like I get this sweet, nutty flavor.
Yeah, I can see the nutty flavor. Yeah.
Yep. Salty.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a classic Bolivar cigar from Cuba. Well regarded. Pretty easy to find though. I mean, it's not a hard cigar to find, but man, it's such a great cigar.
It can be a little bit hard to find. We'll get into it, but in the sliding lid box is in more demand.
Yeah, it comes in a 25 count dress box and a 25 count sliding lid box, and we can get into our preferences. But I want to light this thing. Let's do it, boys.
It's 52 by 5.5.
Belicoso, obviously.
A Belicoso.
A wonderful cigar out of Cuba. Like I said, well regarded. People love this cigar. Very, very popular, and a real treat. So glad we're doing this one tonight on the pod. And it's our first Bolivar too. We haven't done a Bolivar yet. For how many Bolivars we smoke, obviously, we love the Royal Corona. We love this cigar. This is the first one we're doing. So
And I like the Petite Corona too, but
I haven't had one of those. What is that like, Poobah?
It's strong. Yeah, it packs a punch.
I love that cigar.
Yeah,
I have
Grinder smokes a lot.
I smoke that. I have two in my box right now that I brought to the Lizard Lounge.
You know what's the best Petite Corona, in my opinion?
What's
I
that?
think
Por La
Poobah-
Oranja?
No.
Punch.
Poobah would agree. Guess.
I'm gonna say punch.
Ramon.
Really?
Oh.
Club Coronas.
Well, that's
okay.
not. But that's like a Demitas. That's
Yeah, I don't think
That's
it's a
not.
Petite
That's not
Corona.
a. That's more
It's
towards
not
the,
a
like what it-
classic
It's not a Petite,
Petite
Corona.
Corona.
right.
But
What's the
Even the sorry to interrupt. Even the Bolivar Petit Corona is kind of thicker than most Petit Coronas.
I thought it's very
No.
classic in
No,
size.
no. I would. It's not.
No.
No.
Nah.
No, it's a Petite Corona.
So we smoke. Obviously, we smoke a lot of aged Cubans. I know. Obviously, everybody knows that Rooster smokes ridiculously aged Cubans generally, but tonight we're smoking young Belicosos Finos, 21 bucks. These are really, really good on the light, guys.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Smoking great young. Beautiful.
This to me reminds me of like when I first started really enjoying Cuban cigars. This is what I loved about it. This flavor profile. And I couldn't describe it adequately. Maybe you guys can help amplify some of this sentiment, but it's so smooth. It's got that earthy, kind of grassy. It's great.
The smoke is velvety. Melt the cigar.
That's the thing. There's a creaminess to the
Absolutely.
Belicosos Finos that I really like.
And you don't get that on the Royal Corona.
this is
I
better
agree.
than the
It's a
Royal
bit
Corona.
different than the Royal Corona. Yeah.
I have the.
This is 21.
These are 21s. Yeah. They're smoking great young. I mean, we talked about this. I think with the D4s, we talked about this. Maybe something else, but these are smoking very good young. Great crop, 19, 20, 21. obviously with age, they change, they mature. But these are really, really, really great cigars, young. So, Poobah, talk to us about what you know. I know, obviously, we did a deep dive on Ramon Aonis, so I'm excited to hear what you have for us on Bolivar.
Sure. So it's a Belicoso. So one thing that I thought was interesting to talk about. So the Belicoso was a shape. There's a difference between a Belicoso, a pyramid, and a torpedo. Right. So there's a lot of confusion around because they look similar, but a Belicoso kind of goes straight down and then towards the middle of the cigar, it starts to flare out just a little bit. And then a pyramid kind of has from the tip down, kind of goes at an angle all the way down. And then the torpedo is the tip and then kind of goes straight down. So they are different shapes slightly. So the Belicoso is it goes kind of straight down and then flares out kind of towards the foot. And then a pyramid kind of swells all the way down, and then the torpedo kind of is a point and then kind of goes straight down. So not to get into too much minutia.
But you know what, though?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know those.
That's new. That's new.
That's huge information
I
for me. 'Cause
really
I didn't
always
know.
thought that they were just synonyms. I thought it was just.
I was
they were
going to
saying
say the same thing. I was like, that when you started saying that, I'm like, I thought it was all the same.
It's not. So if you look at something that's technical, now sometimes brands, New World, Old World, mix these terms up, but traditionally what you'd see with the Belicosos is kind of it goes, straight down and then swells towards the tip and towards the foot and then gets a little bit wider. So that's kind of the difference between a Belicoso, a pyramid, and a torpedo. In terms of brand history, Bolivar was originally founded in the UK, in Great Britain, by Jose F. Rocha in 1901, 1902. Was officially registered in Cuba in 1921 by Jose F. Rocha and a very familiar name partner, the Cifuentes.
Okay,
family. Again. Right. So we've talked about that.
So they came up in the Ramon Aonis story, obviously.
Right. So the company and the rights to the brand name Bolivar was purchased from Jose F. Rocha after his death in 1954, by the Cifuentes Sicía company, which had all their production of all their cigars, which included Bolivar, Partagas, Ramon Alones, and La Gloria Cabana out of the Partagas factory, and Partagas, of course. So that's the brand history. And in terms of the name, Simon Bolivar was a pretty prominent historical figure. And this cigar honors Simon Bolivar. And essentially, he was the kind of the Latin America equivalent of George Washington. He was a revolutionary leader in the 19th century who led the revolution in Latin America. He was president of multiple countries, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, and of course, Bolivia is named after Simon Bolivar. And he helped Latin America gain its independence from the Spanish monarchy.
And I'm going to make an assumption, but is that him on the band of the Bolivar cigar?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
Yeah, that's him in all of his glory.
Thank you, guys.
Good work, Gizmo.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Drop the mic and leave.
I'm going to head out.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because he believed in the rights of the individual. He believed in freedom, and that's why they call him the liberator, or El Libertor, because he really he helped lead the revolution against the Spanish monarchy to liberate Latin America. And I guess I'll just close it. It's kind of ironic that he that the marker or the brand kind of lived on post-revolution
in
in
Cuba.
Castro in Cuba, because it's like the Latin American equivalent of kind of George Washington's name and face on a cigar band, but for Latin America, for Central and South America.
Under communism in Cuba.
Under communism in Cuba, and it's lived on, and they have like the Libator, you know.
They have like a release, right?
The release
Yeah.
called the Libator. And they even did like, I think, a commemorative jar at one point of Bolivars that was like commemorating like the collaboration of like Cuba and China. You know what I mean? Like in the 90s,
Under his name.
like under Simon Bolivar's name, he's like rolling in his grave like this is complete lunacy. And that's pretty much it. He was also a Freemason, like George Washington was, and many of our founders. So he was a very significant historical figure who stood for freedom and independence.
I think that's the important. Like his name, that name Bolivar, is synonymous with liberty in Latin America, and you know, I'm drawing on like some history classes now, but I believe like he was educated. He was born somewhere in Latin America, but he was educated in Europe.
You know, he was in Spain.
Was he? Was
Yeah,
he in Spain?
I believe he was born in Spain because his mother lodge as a Freemason is in Spain.
Okay.
So I think he was born in Spain.
And I think that's where he kind of picked up some of these egalitarian concepts. And, you know, he's a wealthy family coming back. He came back to Latin America and he kind of pushed for that independence movement. And, you know, he liberated a lot of that swath of Spanish, you know, the Spanish colony in Latin America. And he founded a new country, a new state, I think it was called Gran Colombia, which like this massive, you know, amalgamation, to use that word again, of countries, which at the time was singular. And then the reason why, it's kind of a sad story actually. The reason why he's the president of so many countries is because his idea of this unified state never actually came to fruition because they all fragmented. Right. And at the end, he just kind of became president of each of these different sovereign states because he was synonymous with liberty and freedom and, you know, egalitarianism and at the end, from what I recall, he was kind of sour on the whole concept because at the end of the day, I think he said like, Latin America is not governable because it's so disparate, it's so far removed. There's so many different cultures and languages and identities and you know, it's kind of funny because they're still struggling with so much of that today, you know?
Yeah, they are. And he died in his 50s of tuberculosis.
Yeah, TB.
Yeah.
I mean,
crazy, right? But a real, I find the irony is very interesting that he's this iconic historical figure that Jose Rocha, you know, the founder of Bolivar, honored. I mean, this is an homage to Simon Bolivar, the cigar, and it somehow, now I don't know if no one actually knew, who didn't even bother to figure out who the hell this guy was. They had to have known, but maybe not. And they've let that communism has let this ambassador of freedom and independence just live on the cigar band.
And his face too, not even his name, but it's literally his
face.
A picture of him. A drawing of him.
But I think that relates to
he wasn't canceled.
Yeah, it wasn't canceled. But his meaning was transformed because the concept of Bolivar is more about revolution than it is necessarily about liberty.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe
because he was a revolutionary. Right?
He was, but he was a revolutionary for everything that we believe in.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it was, you know, corrupted and used for different reasons.
Correct. So that's the kind of the brief overview.
Beautiful.
I'll tell you, this is even young. I mean, even a 21 box, guys. I mean, this is something you could order right now and have it in a couple weeks. This is a fantastic cigar.
It is ridiculously good. The smoke is just wonderful.
This is a classic Lizard cigar. I mean, I
doubt.
don't know anybody in this group who doesn't smoke a lot of these cigars.
No doubt.
I smoke a lot of the Royal Coronas. I have a few aged boxes of those. I know they don't smoke the same young, I've actually never had a Belicosos Finos with a lot of age on them. 5+ years. I don't know if you guys have, but I'm curious. Like, have you had?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
what
I've
do
had
these
aged.
turn into after a few years?
They really they smooth out, and that creaminess that Senator kind of spoke to on the light, it just gets accelerated. I mean, big time. They become creamy. You get an earthy flavor in combination with this creaminess, which you can see here. I mean, it's present, but it's just amplified.
It is a creamy smoke, and it is one of those smokes that really coats the roof of your mouth. It's not. I don't want to say muted, but it's not really punching you. But there's a lot of flavor there.
There is.
I think it's I think it's a great introductory and then intermediate Cuban cigar. Meaning, if you have someone that's not really, experienced in Cuban cigars, and you give this to them, like I the first time I smoked this, I had smoked many Cubans, not many, but a fair amount of Cubans. And Senator gave me one on his deck. He said, "You got to try this," and I had it, and I was like, "Where's this been?" And that to me still is like, this is like not the. It's like a benchmark for me of Cuban cigars. I kind of measure it against the D4 or the Ramon Iones and say, how does this relate to the BFF in a way? Because that was the first time where I was like, God damn, this is so fucking good,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because for me, obviously, I love Partagas as a Cuban brand. And the Partagas P2 was always my favorite torpedo, bellicoso, whatever you want to call it. And I forget when I first had one of these, but I was shocked how much I loved this cigar. And I just dove in, and now, I mean, I'd get the shakes if my humidor did not have a Belicosos Finos in it.
I thought Poobah gave you one at a
regularly-
former lounge, right?
No, I had ordered these. I think, ironically, Rooster and we split a box of these. I think the first time that I got into the Belicosos Finos, and it was a young box, and I was going to let it sit for a long time. And Rooster had, we know his motto right off the truck. And Rooster lit one up, and he said, "Senator, they're great to smoke. Just smoke them now." And I lit one up, and I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. And ironically, I was raving about this cigar to Gizmo in our lounge at the time, and I gave him one. And I'll never forget, Gizmo smoked that cigar all the way down to the end without ashing it a single time. There are a few cigars you're able to do that with. And it was just a testament to, I think, the construction of the Belicosos Finos. I've never had a plugged one. The draw's always been really good. A nice white ash. The flavor, I think, is just outstanding. And, Gizmo's used this word, I think, in a number of episodes about an accessible cigar. What I like about this cigar is I think it's very versatile. And this gets to what Grinder was saying, where I think if you're new into Cubans, you're going to love this cigar. It's very approachable. And if you're very experienced, like we are, still is so satisfying.
We
And
will
that's why I
smoke
love
this cigar for the rest of our lives. There's just no
Absolutely.
doubt about it.
It's on the All-Star team.
It
Yeah.
is.
Oh,
It-
absolutely.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's on the All-Star team, and obviously it's changed for me in where it fits in my. If I'm going to smoke a few cigars in a sitting, it's changed in where it sits. I'll either open with it or I'll go. Obviously I go up in strength every time I smoke. But man, this cigar is fantastic. And to go on what Senator said about the first time he gave me a BBF, I made a mistake. I had that cigar. I was completely blown away. I never ashed it. It kept its ash the entire time. And I made a mistake. Do you remember what the mistake was?
No.
Because I ordered a box and we split it. And I ordered a dress box and not a sliding lid box.
No, we didn't split that.
I thought we did.
No, I never would have split a dress box of this.
Okay, well, I ordered one.
But I was
and
very angry that you
he
did.
he was not happy. I thought we split it, but he was not happy that I ordered a dress box because we've talked about this before on the pod. When you order a dress box, the cigars are really stuffed in there in the sizing of the cardboard boxes. The sliding lid box, if you have an option to get one, that's the way you need to go.
And I'll say this,
That's absolutely the way you need to go.
Sorry, and obviously I'm big on the sliding lid box and a cedar box, but I will say it's not to say that I won't go as far as say every cigar that's in a dress box is not a good cigar. It's nothing like that. But for whatever reason, this cigar in particular, more than many others, if you buy the Belicosos Finos in a dress box, that cardboard box, or a sliding lid box, The sliding lid box, hands down, every time smokes better for this stick. So for anyone that attempts to source this, and if they like it after listening to this episode, I hope you order SLB, the sliding lid box. That's
It's
you're
a
gonna get the
great,
best
great,
experience.
great advice. Yeah.
I mean, I'm reflecting on or observing the fact that we're all enjoying this. There's good combustion, but we're not overwhelmed with a a wave of smoke in the Lizard Lounge, and
Yeah.
it's very, to your point, it's approachable.
Mm.
You can smoke it, and it's definitely an inside cigar. I mean, would you agree? It's an inside cigar.
I think both.
Wouldn't you say that for most Cubans, though?
I would.
I would.
I only say both because when I gave one to Grinder, I mean, we smoked that on my deck, and I thought it was enjoyable. I've had this cigar with my dad outside, and
Yeah.
we've loved it. I think it fits kind of anywhere.
Maybe
Depends
that-
on
maybe
the
that's a
weather.
dumb comment,
Depends
I
on the
don't know.
weather, really.
It's not dumb. I mean, to me, if I'm going to have one cigar outside, and
It's a new world, really.
Really, to me,
Yeah.
the wind is the factor.
Yeah.
If it's zero wind, the leaves aren't moving at all.
Yeah.
I'll smoke whatever.
It's the
Cuban,
weather. Yeah.
But it really comes down to
The
wind.
wind is it.
The thing that agreed. One of the things that impresses me about Bolivar, I'm a big fan, and I've loved these for as long as I've smoked cigars. I've always the first Cuban cigar I ever had was a Romeo and Juliet at Churchill, and then the other cigar that I would smoke was the Bolivar Petit Corona. And I've always really been a fan of Bolivar. They were popular. They've always been kind of popular. But the thing about Bolivar, to me, that I find like a redeeming quality about the Marca is that they stick to their guns. They do not change. So like this cigar hasn't changed. It's not like they really, the flavor profile of Bolivar is established, and it is what it is, and they kind of stick to their guns, and I really, really respect that about the Marca. It is what it is. They do what they do, and it doesn't change.
And they do it so well.
And they do it so well.
They don't feel this pressure to have to do more than what they do because they
Just-
know they've mastered it.
Yeah, it's just it's really, they've stuck to it. And
It's also a very consistent cigar. I've had these for a few years. The flavor profile has been the same every time. The construction's always excellent. Never had it, like you said earlier, Senator, never a plugged version of this. The draw's always been perfect. From the Royal Corona to the Belicosos Finos, fabulous, consistent, well-made cigar.
but
From my experience,
I've run into
I'm surprised.
problematic.
I'm surprised to hear that.
Dress box.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah, I've had.
yeah.
It's not, and also with the Petit Coronas too, there are some problems. I'm not going to totally concur with that.
Okay.
I've had to use a perfect draw on Petit Coronas. I've had to out of Bolivar.
I've never had that.
I've had draw issues.
Never had that cigar.
With Bolivars out of dress boxes. It's not.
So if
I'm with
if we just
Poobah.
stick with the Belicosos Finos and the Royal Corona, if we're staying in that area,
I've had problems with Royal Coronas too.
But I'll say
So,
this.
so if I
I
just
got to
want
come over your house.
Sorry, can I clarify real quick? When I was saying that I've never had a draw issue, I'm exclusively talking about the Belicosos Finos.
Same here.
And it's one of the reasons that I love this cigar more than any of
Out of a
Bolivar's.
sliding lid box.
Yes.
And they
I-
only
as someone
make
who
three
smoked-
sizes, right? I mean, it's just this, the Royal Corona, and the Petite Corona.
Petit, yeah. I smoke a lot of Petit Coronas, and
I've had
I would say
draw issues
one-
with those.
yeah, I would say 1 out of, unfortunately, because it's a cigar I really enjoy, 1 out of 5
Oh yeah.
is a little plugged.
Yep.
If you get a box of 25,
No doubt.
there's a chance that you're gonna have 5 duds.
Yep.
I'm not sure because I think I'm finding a little bit of resistance to the draw on this one. But I could tell you the construction, you think about the ash, fantastic, great flavor profile. But I'm having a tough time with the draw. And, for the smoker who likes a smoke output, it's relatively low.
I'm sorry. I feel like Grinder and I are both looking at each other in amazement because you're saying you're having draw issues, but you've got like an inch and a half of white ash
Yeah.
that is absolutely
razor
perfect
sharp.
on that
It's
stick.
like you
wow.
stuck
It's
needle
scientifically
down the center.
impossible to have an act like
Rooster's
that.
got the same thing. I mean, look at the construction of this cigar.
Yeah.
That I'm
Look at
looking around the
Gizmo.
room. Gizmo,
No, mine's great too.
it's incredible.
Mine's great too, but I have a whole box of these, a dress box of these that smoke kind of dead.
But that
I
was
will
your
say-
mistake. You gotta get the sliding lid.
I will
box.
say
I
if
understand, but to your point before, given the time, the place, what's available at the time, you roll the dice and you get what's available. Because guess what? The truth of the matter is, right now, if you're looking with the shortage, if you're looking for a sliding lid box of these, they're not just ubiquitous and out there. They're just not
Right now, they are available. I promise you.
I will say this about two
not
things.
everywhere.
The dress box definitely, the sliding lid box cigars I've had have smoked way better than the dress box cigars I've had. But I will say this too, and I'm an evangelist for humidity. I think these cigars are very sensitive to humidity, and the closer you get to 62, the better they're going to smoke all the
I
time.
agree.
These
True
more
for
than,
all Cubans.
yes, but there are some Cubans like a D4. I think a D4 can smoke at any humidity, no problem. I think
62.
62.
Yeah,
The
I think
closer you
it's
get
all
to 62, I think this
Most.
one is more sensitive than any. I think the closer I get to 65 on these, the worse they smoke. 62 is the number, for sure.
No, don't get me wrong. By the way, Senator did advise me to get one of those cabinets with the sliding, I guess,
Slide box.
Sliding box.
SLB.
sliding box. I'm
Anytime,
just about to ash
Look, guys, I mean,
my
look,
cigar, but
like, I got a seam here, that's look, Bolivars, the construction on these is not always exemplary. Okay. They're really good, but I mean, this needs, they taste amazing, but they're a little bit more towards
A bit
the
rustic.
quality
Rustic.
of
It's
the
a bit
quality
rustic.
of the
Literally gonna
Ramon
say the same
Ramones.
thing.
It's a bit rustic.
I think Poobah
Yes.
brings up a great point because when
mean-
we reviewed the RAS, the Ramon Ione Especially Selected, I think a number of us actually compared the Bolivar and Ramon Iones brands in that they're both very rustic
Mhm.
constructed cigars.
Right.
They're not cigars that
Right.
necessarily open the box and you look at it and you say, wow, these are, as clean and
Pristine.
sharp and
They're-
pristine as a
seams are-
Partagas or an Upman.
I mean,
And so I completely agree with that. The construction is very rustic, but it's the same reason that I love the RAS, and I think all of us love the RAS.
the
The same
flavor.
reason we like this. The flavor is just
Yeah.
so good. That's
So
what
good.
brings us back.
Like once you get down into like an inch of this thing, and it because it's a young cigar, so like on the light, like once it starts to settle into the middle, it really smooths out. At the end, there'll be a couple rough edges, like we know what to expect because there'll be a little bit of youth,
It's young.
a little bit
yeah.
of freshness in there.
Yeah.
But like all of it's there.
Yeah.
But like it's all in it. The things that you would want.
for the listener also, if you have a choice between a slide box SLB as opposed to a dress box, go for the SLB.
You have to go SLB every time.
every time.
Every time.
60% of the time.
it works all the time.
All right, so let's talk about our pairing tonight. As to call back to a Poobah quote, a familiar friend to the Lizards. Macallan, 12-year aged, single malt Scotch. I mean,
That's mother's milk. The Macallan 12 is mother's milk to this group.
is there anything that we drink more
No.
than Macallan 12 sherry
Well,
cask?
by volume, maybe Kirkland.
Well, Kirkland, sure, sure. Rooster just gave me there's a twinkle in his eye over there, referencing Costco. But Macallan 12 is the gold standard for us
Yeah,
as
I
far as single malt Scotch goes.
think for a lot of us, we view this as the best 12-year single malt, or at least most of us.
Absolutely.
Maybe the Balvenie 12, the 50 oak,
The double
50
wood?
sherry, the double wood.
Yeah.
It's a great bottle. I still, for me, this is my personal favorite 12-year.
It's a go-to. It's a go-to.
I think a lot of guys really love this. I mean, just some brief history on Macallan. And I only looked any of this up because as much as I consume this, I know nothing about the brand. I mean, truly, I always assume Macallan is a person's name. Maybe that's where it's not a name. So just some quick history. I mean, Macallan was founded in 1824. It was one of the first distillers in Scotland to have a legal license to manufacture and sell alcohol. The name Macallan, as I said, it's not a person. It's derived from the Gaelic word, and Grinder will probably know way more about this, so I'm interested in his perspective. But apparently it's derived from the Gaelic word mag, which means a fertile land, and Allen, a monk who spread Christianity in Scotland during the 18th century. So they sort of melded that together and came up with this name Macallan. And originally, and this is why I've always loved Macallan, and it's changed and it's not their fault. This is where I'm going to slightly poke and criticize a little bit. But originally, Macallan, and I think they were one of the only distillers in Scotland, which is why I love this brand, that was matured exclusively in sherry casks from Jerez, Spain. I love the flavor of a single malt that comes out of a sherry cask. I think a lot of us love those flavor notes that we get from that. Now, beginning in 2004, and I think Macallan and other distillers will say that they intentionally made this decision, but I think if you understand how the world operates in terms of casks, and as a wine person, I pay close attention to this stuff. European sherry casks, there is a global shortage. There has been for years now of these. And coincidentally, when this global shortage started years ago, Macallan, for the first time in 2004, introduced a new product. At the time, it was called the Fine Oak. I'm sure you guys saw this. It was like a 10-year they came out with. They used to only have the 12. And the reason they did that is because they started making that with bourbon casks they were aging the Scotch in. And now you've seen, and again, it's not their fault, but because of this shortage, Macallan now has, there's a Macallan 12 double cask that's half aged in ex-bourbon barrels, half in sherry. They have triple cask. They even, for Macallan 18 now, it's not just the Macallan 18 sherry. They have a Macallan 18 triple cask because they're having a hard time finding enough sherry casks to keep up with the demand and the volume that they produce. But for Macallan 12, we all universally, I think, appreciate. And for any lizard out there who's a Macallan fan or who will become one after listening to this, you want to buy that black box.
The black
Macallan.
box.
Was about to go
That's
there.
the sherry cask
Black
12
box.
year. The blue box is the double cask, which is half bourbon barrel, half sherry. I personally, for my palate, don't find it to be as enjoyable as just the straight 12 years in sherry. So I think for us, this is
Totally agree.
gold
What's
standard.
Yep.
What do you mean by a double cask and a triple cask?
So the double cask is aged in two different types of cask. Half of it 6 years in sherry, and the other half 6 years in
Then
ex-bourbon
they
barrels.
blend it.
Yeah, and they don't blend
No,
it.
no,
It's
it's
transferred.
sherry and European oak.
So why not
the
just
double
leave
cask.
it in the
Correct,
sherry
correct.
cask then? If they have it in the sherry cask,
Because it's in more demand.
Yeah, there's just not enough to keep up
Yeah.
with the demand. Where regular oak is very easy to
Yeah,
find
but
right
don't
now.
they? Wouldn't they have to take what they have in the oak cask and what they have in the sherry cask, and they take that and they put it together? That's what I mean. When they
Yeah,
say-
but it's the same Scotch as the difference.
that's what I mean.
That's
Yeah, they take
so
blend
it's
or they put it
technically not
together.
blended. Yeah, they put it.
They put it together. That's
because
what I
in
mean.
distilling, blended would imply that it's different things that they're mixing together. Where these are the same thing, they're just putting.
They're just
So
putting
here's
it
a
together, yeah.
quick question. So I'm just curious because I don't know much about this as much as you do. Are they actually aging in two different types of barrels and then combining it into a single barrel? Is that
Yes.
what's happening?
Yes.
That's interesting.
But that goes. I mean that Scotch distilleries do that. The single malt name is kind of confusing because I think it's more confusing in America than it is in Europe. Because in America we have this concept of single barrel bourbon, and it's literally comes from a single barrel, and that's it. It's a batch. They have the batch number on the label and everything, and it's from a single barrel. And it was a great marketing ploy by some of these Kentucky bourbon distilleries to do that, right? Because they could jack up the price and say it's from a single barrel, but it's really not any different from any of the other bourbons. The single malt Scotch, it's not like it's from a single barrel.
It's the starting material.
No, it's the blender takes different barrels of different barrels, and he literally says, okay, this batch of barrels has this flavor profile. This is a little different because it's all different. Like this is all organic material, and he blends all the different barrels into one unique flavor and one unique taste. And that's where they say single malt Scotch. It's not because it's from a single barrel. It's literally just from a single distillery. That's all that it means. And Macallan was one of the first. I think they were one of the first companies or distilleries to actually coin that term. Single malt Scotch now is synonymous with good quality, but it's really, it's more or less because Macallan decided to slap that on the bottle and say this is single malt.
The only thing I would say that I think there's some merit to it, and I'm always, I feel like making analogies to wine where, when you look at some of the higher priced wines and they say that they're estate grown, they're grown on just that property that they own. They are not sourcing what's in that bottle from other vineyards in different places or other regions, even within California or France or wherever, and then, blending that or bringing that together. And so, there's what a purist would say is like, there's a character about that unique property on that land
absolutely.
that they have, and it's all only coming from that place. And so I think that's a bit of the, intrigue.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I agree, but it's not. It's primarily the distinction between a blended Scotch and a single malt Scotch is solely because a blended Scotch will take this batch of barrels from this distillery and this batch of barrels from another distillery, and they'll have it in their inventory and they'll blend it together and they'll say this is our Scotch. Similar to Kirkland, that's a blended Scotch that I forget the gentleman's name. He's a good blender, and he takes different
Alexander.
Yeah,
Alexander Murray.
yeah, exactly.
Murray.
I don't know if that's his real. I think that's just a name, like the
It could
brand
be.
name.
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, I think Macallan. I mean, they've been around for almost 200 years. Is that what you said?
1800s, early 1800s.
Early 1800s. So, they've been, around for a long time, and I believe it's a Highland Scotch, right? So Highland, I think you mentioned earlier what the original making Scotch and distilling Scotch whiskey was actually outlawed for a long time, right? So you had to get a special royal warrant or royal certificate to do this because the English wanted to tax the fuck out of the Scots. So to do that, they had to denote they had to make an artificial line for what the Highlands were and what everything else was, and say, okay, you guys making Scotch up here, all of you Scotsmen, we're going to tax you, and here's the rules. And there's specific laws and parameters, kind of like how the Germans have the Reinheitsgebot for their beer. They have a specific set of parameters for Scotch, and accordingly, it's more or less a way for them to tax. And it's still today.
It still happens now.
It still happens now, and so much so that there are people. You can get a Macallan 12 Scotch in Speyside, where I think it's a Speyside distillery, Northern Highlands of Scotch near the North Sea, and it will cost more there than it will here.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that's actually common across all the Scotch industry. That's really, amazing. You look at so much of history, especially vis-a-vis the British, has been related to them extracting wealth and resources from various peoples, and then obviously those peoples combating it. But back to the Scotch, it's to your point, it's a familiar friend. Sherry, the sherry flavor really comes through. Always traditionally sherry. They did change from. I don't think they actually make the Spanish barrels anymore, do they? I'm not sure about that.
I think so. Yeah.
They still do.
Yeah.
I believe most of
not nearly in as many as they used to. But
yeah, I think most of the standard production now is still in. I'm not sure if it's still Spanish sherry, but I may be wrong. And they have to your point earlier, they have the double cask. The thing about this Scotch that I like a lot, and one of the reasons why I also like some other Scotches like a Lagavulin, is they have those short pot stills. So this dark amber color, that's because it's a short pot still. They have they have a guy whose whole business is to foundry, special pots, and they maintain them. They have a specific role in the distillery to actually a master of barrels. Like this guy, his only role is literally to just source barrels, and that's his job, and he gets paid very well to do it. And he is the reason why there's so much high quality Macallan around the world. And I think it's like one of the most sold scotches, single malt scotches in the world.
It is. It's
I
top
don't know.
five.
Top
Top
five.
5 selling brands of Scotch in the world.
And if I think that, and a couple of the Glens, probably Glenlivet and
And
Glenfiddich.
Glenfiddich are the
Yeah,
two,
Glenfiddich
the
as well.
top 2.
the other, yeah. So
And
those
some
three.
say Macallan's 3, some say Macallan's 5, but the only definitive that are, because they all sort of release what they want, the only definitive ones that sell more than Macallan does is
Yeah.
Glenfiddich
And
and
it-
Glenlivet.
And it's distinctly British. It's distinctly Scottish. Obviously, it's the official Scotch of the Speaker of the House of Commons, which I found really cool. And it's been like that for probably 100 years.
So to confirm, you can have blended Scotch, but from a single distillery, which can be called a single malt.
Pretty much all Scotch is blended,
And
but blended Scotch in the marketing term means it's from 2 different distilleries. You cannot
Or
have
more
you
than
cannot-
2 even.
More than 2. You cannot have the term single malt Scotch on a Scotch bottle unless it's been from it was from one distillery.
yes.
The other thing that's funny is when you think about, why I'm sympathetic to the challenge that Macallan and all these distillers are going through with the barrels. I mean, you think about Macallan being made years ago, and they're coming from, they're aging it in ex-sherry barrels. How many people drink sherry now compared to years ago? You have to think about this, right? Like the sherry has aged for years in that barrel, and then it's done and they bottle it. And then you have these distillers that buy those barrels and they want to age their Scotch in that. And you think of sherry, I feel like is just declining as a spirit, and bourbon is exploding as a spirit. And so it's so much easier for all of these distillers to get ex-bourbon barrels that they can age single malt Scotch or tons of other spirits that are aged in barrels like that. And it's tough. They're in
Yeah.
a bind.
And that tradition is it's not new. I think we talked about this on a previous podcast. Like that tradition started during World War II, when the Scots, industrious Scots that they are, penny pinchers, said we can take all this trash from the Americans because they just throw it in
the
the river.
Americans were throwing it out.
Yeah,
right?
and buy it on the cheap and put our stuff in there. And they said, "Shit, this is really good," and that's what it is today.
So there's a price difference though, and we should note this in the black box that we're drinking tonight and the blue box, which is the
Double cask.
double cask. About what, $15, $20?
No, it's less.
Less,
even now.
10?
It's like 10 bucks.
Yeah,
But the taste is
it's noticeable.
Yeah.
Worlds apart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's distinctively different.
I was just going to say what I love as we're saying worlds apart in terms of taste. I think Macallan 12 of all 12-year scotches, in my opinion, is the most complex. I think there are more distinct flavor notes that you will pick out of Macallan 12 sherry. And I love Balvenie 12 double wood. There's a number of other 12 years that I enjoy drinking, but I think this is more complex than any of them.
Oh yeah, it's the best. It's my favorite Scotch. And even when what was the Balvenie
The 14 Caribbean
Caribbean
Yeah, Caribbean
cask,
cask. Yeah.
which is really amazing and
great.
unique, and it's like really awesome. But like, if I'm on a hospital bed and you're like, and I'm like, listen,
It always goes to death.
come visit me,
We always go to like, what happens if we're dying?
and I'm like, come visit me, and I'm like, listen, just fill a flask up with. What am I going to ask you to fill a flask up that I can take a couple nips off?
Well, for
of
you,
while I'm
we're going to fill a
dying?
thermos, not a
Thermos.
Yeah.
I resent the implication, but
No, you don't.
I don't know what you mean. But I'd be like, bring me up, come on, give me a couple. That's the Scotch going to the electric chair that I want, because I've consumed copious amounts of the Scotch over the years, because at the end of the day, it really is. It's so balanced, and it's complex. You almost, I don't want to say take it for granted, but sometimes, but it's easy to, because it's like a go-to. You know, it really is a go-to.
And the crazy thing for me, if you were to just, I want to talk about the flavor notes in this for a second, because you obviously get the sherry sweetness in this, like you do most other 12-year scotches that are aged in sherry casks. And I thought I was nuts when I was tasting this. And then I looked this up, and I'm not crazy. There are other people who get the same thing out of this, but you get that sweetness from the sherry cask. And I always, only with Macallan, get this chocolate note out of the scotch that I, again, thought my mind was playing tricks. I looked this up just to see what other people get out of it. And it's very much on all of these lists, people whose palates are picking up that same thing. And also, and Bam will love this citrus that you get also in the scotch. It's just so complex. I just, for $65, the complexity just blows me away every time.
So sometime I'd suggest that you try, if you're watching like Netflix in your leather chair upstairs and relaxing, try eating Pepperidge Farm Milano dark chocolate orange.
Now you're talking.
Yeah,
Orange.
Yeah. And
Now you're talking.
Eat that. Like take a couple nibbles of that after dinner, and you're like, or just the Milano
Oh, I'll
cookie,
eat
that double chocolate, dark chocolate Milano.
I want one right
and
now.
you eat that with like a little scotch. My God.
And a cigar?
And
Oh, come on.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't even know.
Come on.
Forget the cigar. Just chocolate and scotch is like, and particularly this Macallan. You know, it's like a Milano cookie, dude.
You're sounding like Giz for some reason. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah. I was going to go there.
I knew the Broussard was going to come up. I
Broussard.
knew it.
you're
I
gonna
knew
tell
it.
me that a chocolate chip cookie? Just take a chocolate chip cookie and eat it with the scotch. It's fantastic.
Coming back to the cigar and smoking the cigar with this scotch, for me, very much the same way. This cigar is a benchmark for good Cuban cigars with great flavor. The Macallan 12 is the benchmark for sherry scotch to me. You know, that's what I always, if I relate pretty much, well, I relate most scotches I drink to Macallan 12, regardless of what it's been aged in. But when I look at the market for sherry cask scotches, the Balvenie, whatever they are, I'm looking to see, okay, how does this actually rack and stack against the Macallan 12?
Yep.
I'm glad you said that. And I love Poobah's sort of deathbed analogy with, Macallan, because we've all been very lucky to try some, I think, really amazing single malt scotches. And there are, $600, $700, $800 bottles I've been lucky to try that friends, we're sharing and enjoying together. And I'm always the person who says, I really enjoyed this. This was great. But I'll tell you, like Poobah said, if I'm on my deathbed, I'm still reaching for a Macallan 12. And that's the beauty of that scotch, that for $65, I think it can compete with almost anything out there. There's few things you'd be able to say that about.
Few things. So I have a picture I'll circulate to you guys. I actually had the distinct pleasure of having a couple of drams of Macallan 1945.
Wow.
Jesus.
Wow.
Jesus.
Okay, and I have,
Was that when you were 10, Poobah?
No, no. This
You just got shanked.
This was 7 or 8 years ago. This was 7 or 8 years ago, and the bottle was no joke, like $13,000. I mean, it's like a ridiculous amount of money.
What does that mean, though? Was that mean it was bottled in
Oh,
1945?
it says
or it was
yes.
aged. How many years was it?
No,
aged?
It says
that's the year it was bottled.
and it actually says in red. I'll show you. I'll send you the picture. It says in red lettering, 1945, one of blah 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 blah.
These
So what
bottles
was
go
the-
at auction.
So
Yeah.
what was the
Oh my
age of
God.
that, though?
Well, longer than that, honestly, because it was.
Well,
No,
however
no, no,
many
no. I
years
mean,
prior
not
to the-
like aged in the barrel is what is
So
the.
this is from 1945.
I understand.
That's the
yeah.
bottling year.
What I'm saying is that bottle. What was the age
before it was bottled.
Oh, I don't know,
Because
dude.
it stops,
I mean,
stops aging, right? I mean,
Because I would argue I don't know how. I mean, I think obviously the flavor profiles change a lot because it gets stronger. I would argue it gets stronger because you have the the angel share, right? There's I don't know I don't know your experience, but my guess is there was a good amount that was tapped out of the bottle, and that flavor was probably so much stronger because some of that water just evaporated.
Um, it was only a couple of drams that I was able to have that night. So it wasn't like I ruminated over it forever, but it was damn good.
Well, I'll say this. I just looked this up because I've seen, as someone who travels a lot for business, especially when you're traveling in Asia, for whatever reason, there's this huge fascination with single malt Scotch in Asia. And you go into a lot of these places, cigar places, and they will have display cabinets of 1960 Macallan bottles and all this stuff that sure you can buy for 15 grand there. And looking this up, all of these age statement Macallan bottles, from what I'm seeing, minimum were aged, the actual liquid before they bottled was aged 18 to 30 years. So they're all premium.
So
bottles.
that's fascinating to me. So the 1945 bottle that you had was potentially aged, in the early 1900s.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So 100 years ago.
It's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy night, and it was a crazy night, and it was complete lunacy. I have the picture. And it was a great experience. But that was nice. But I mean, you're only going to get so much. I mean, there's a limited amount that you're gonna consume from that. And by the way, that was in a private setting, not at a bar. It was somebody's personal. It was my friend's personal bottle.
No bar would stock that.
Right. I mean, this wasn't like,
So, Senator, you mentioned about the Asian market with single malt scotches. I've seen auctions. I've seen absolute insanity with the prices of single malt scotch, aged and not aged. Like, what is going on in the Asian market with single malts?
Yeah, so it's funny. Like I said, there's this huge fascination with single malt Scotch, and for whatever reason, culturally, my mother-in-law has worked a ton of her career in Asia, and it's apparently very customary after business meetings in Asia that they will open a bottle of Scotch, and everyone at the table has to drink until the bottle is empty. And sometimes, apparently, these meetings get so aggressive that when my mother-in-law, she was in finance in her career, a bunch of them, when they would fly into Asia for a meeting, they would bring with them someone, a junior staffer, whose singular job was basically at the end of the meeting, all of these guys, and you have these, these Asian men, and again, it's finance. So my mother-in-law was one of the few women in these rooms always. And you have these Asian guys and my mother-in-law, and if there were ever another woman in that room, who would sort of just tap this person that they would bring with them, and they would take their seat at the table, and it was their job to finish these bottles of Scotch that they would put on the table, because you would just leave completely blasted these meetings if you didn't bring someone with you.
I want that job.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, it's just like culturally, it's become a very customary, celebratory thing to have and share a bottle of single malt. And I think because it's harder to get there, I mean, you look at the prices that they pay for alcohol, it's so much higher than here and even Europe, that it's made it less accessible and also that much more desirable because it's really hard to get.
And the same thing has happened with cigars too. I mean, Cuban cigars, you go on I Havanas, there's literally a note for Chinese buyers that says, do not purchase more than $5,000 of cigars.
I've seen that.
USD in one transaction because they're purchasing at such a high volume.
Right.
And because the prices are just so outrageous. So when they're able to source those from websites that we source our stuff from, that is, I mean, for us, it's a discount. For them, I mean, it's literally like a 90% discount on what they have to pay there. I mean, when I was last in Singapore, no exaggeration, for a Monty 2, I had to pay 50 something US just for that stick.
Wow.
That's a $10 cigar.
It's outrageous.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Well, this Belicosos Finos is really performing well for its age, guys. I mean, for a 21 cigar,
No doubt.
Bam Bam's got an ash that's 4 inches long over there.
I'm just about at the band.
He's at the band.
You know, I think it's easy to take the cigar for granted because
is.
we've smoked it for so long. But It's a quintessential Cuban. I don't think anyone can dispute that.
How do you
It's just
actually
no doubt
smoke
about
it at this point? I'm looking at that ash. Like, how does that?
Well,
Oh my
So
god!
he
I'm
he
gonna-
has to
You're
tilt
tilting
his
your
head
head
back.
you got to lay down in bed.
I think it reminds Bam Bam of his high school days in the gym.
In the locker room after a shower.
So can you take that band off without ashing?
No,
No,
don't
don't
risk
even
it.
do
Don't
that.
I won't do that.
You're
I
gonna
will
make,
not do
you're
that.
gonna make a huge mess.
But
I sent you guys the picture, by the way, of the Scotch bottle.
1946.
It was 46, not 45.
Incredible.
Unfortunately, it was only 12 years old.
So look at that packaging has changed, right? So significantly.
Can we
But the
talk?
Macallan lettering is the same.
Can we talk about just the flavor? We've
please,
all
I
described.
was about to go there.
Yeah,
we
we-
haven't discussed the notes of the cigar.
Exactly. We described that the Belicosos Finos is really full flavor, and we like the
Mhm.
flavor. But what are the notes that we're
You know,
all getting?
honestly, if I can start, I mean, the retrohale, it's easy to retrohale most Cubans. For this particular cigar, I get a lot of floral and a hint of graham cracker, and the smoke is so velvety. You know, I'm getting the wafting of smoke from Grinder's cigar and mine. It's very pleasurable. It's beautiful.
I think that's a very apt
very
description.
earthy.
Delicious.
It's a
Very
very,
earthy.
very earthy cigar.
Yeah.
A little bit of mineral, if I could say that. I mean, but definitely earthy.
I get that, and what's funny though is on the finish, I get just a little of a chocolate, that like sweetness and some cream. It's very complex.
And then getting back to the construction, I'm holding this 3-inch ash horizontally. It's not moving.
Yeah.
That's
It's not even curved. Like there's no
Yeah.
like.
a bit.
There you go.
There it goes.
Bam Bam is ashed.
By the way, I know earlier I said that the draw was a bit resistant, but I can tell you that as I continued to smoke the cigar, it just improved dramatically.
We're going to buy
Awesome.
you a new cutter.
Yeah, there's pepper in here. There's
We're buying you a new cutter.
there's pepper in
Is it
here.
going to be from?
There is.
I
There's a
hope
little
it's
spice.
Gizz's because that's the only one I'll accept.
You got it. Pagoda, you got it.
Yeah, there's pepper in here too. It gets a little peppery down the stretch. It's good.
I would agree.
Poobah, how would you? What do you think about the last third here that we're in now with its age? How do you think it's
Yeah,
performing?
it's a little bit. It tastes a little fresh, but it's all there. It's not. There's nothing about it that's off-putting or anything.
I mean,
in any way for a young cigar, I mean, it really performs well.
You know, like the Partagas, this guy early, like young, it smokes deliciously, right down to the end. For me, that's
It
for me.
does, and I just think there are only a number of Cubans that I think young smoke really well that we would be able to sit here and all enjoy, and we're not off put at some point during the smoke by some of those really rough edges. And I think this, of course, improves with age. There's no question about that. But young is very pleasurable. I mean, I don't think anyone here is sitting here saying like, "Oh boy, at this point, it's really." And that's I think the beauty of, a lot of Partagas I would say smokes well young, and I won't say all of Bolivar, but I will specifically say the Belicosos Finos
Right.
young I think smokes very well.
I almost wanna-
at the end, just at this point for me personally, like I can taste, but that's okay. I mean, that's not a detriment to the cigar. But you can take, for me, it gets a little bit, there are some rough edges in the last inch or so of it. There's no doubt about it.
Well,
this is not as enjoyable for me in the last third as it was in the first two.
Right.
thirds.
It shouldn't be, and it's not going to be. If you laid this cigar even down for 2 or 3 years, you're going to get a little bit. This is going to taste a little bit better. down the
I
stretch.
would disagree with the both of you.
No, you can't.
I'm
because-
taking it down to the end, and I love
You
it.
can't because it's not
Okay.
it's not argued. Well, no, because this cigar is going to get better, Bam.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah.
And it's gonna smooth out. It does require just a little bit more age, but for what it is at this point, I mean, in the performance of the cigar is just outstanding. It's representative of. This is the thing with Bolivar. It stands on its own 2 feet. It's foundationally a fantastic cigar. But I mean, no one's in this room is going to convince me that this cigar isn't going to smoke better in 3 or 4 years. It's definitely will.
No one. I don't think anyone is saying.
I mean,
No, we're not
I
saying
think
that.
what they're saying is that there are a few Cubans that this young we'd all smoke this far down and still
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah,
That's what they're saying.
Hands down, correct.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
it.
say too,
Yeah.
if I was making a purchase tomorrow, of these, which I might, I would buy a box to smoke now, and I'd buy a box to store. You know, that's kind of where I'm at with this. I'm kind of interested to see what it would be like in 3 to 4 years. You know,
Well, yeah. I mean, I've had quite a few aged Bolivars, Belicosos Finos, and they're very, very good.
all right, boys, are you guys ready to do the formal lizard rating?
Oh yeah.
Rooster, you're up.
Again.
Always, always.
So I recently, like 2 days ago, I had a Bolivar Silver Jubilee.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
You shouldn't have told us that.
Yeah, we know.
We can't wait to review this with you, Rooster.
We're doing that next week, right?
Sorry, boys. So that cigar, like, just absolutely blew me away. I mean, this cigar, as young as it is, it's a great, very satisfying smoke, I must say. So I know, and I agree with Poobah with some age on this. This is going to be fantastic. But right now, I would give it an 8.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with it's an 8 for me.
It's also an 8 for me.
I'm giving it a 9.
An 8.
I really love this cigar. The first 2/3 were awesome. I'm really not enjoying it right now. I'm giving it a 7.
I am blown away by that 7 score. I'm at a 9, a 9, a 9.
What?
And let me tell you,
816.
I mean, the notes I'm getting off of this cigar, it's a quintessential Cuban. It's fantastic. 9.
All right. The composite lizard score, an 8.1.
8.1.
I was close.
I think with a few years of age, this is easily in the mid 9s. You know?
Course, yeah.
No
absolutely.
doubt. This is a classic Cuban cigar.
Is that the rating? 8-1?
8.1.
Which is a hard recommend.
It's a hard
Absolutely.
recommend. I'm a little
Anything over an 8 is a hard
I'm a little
recommend.
disappointed, but what choice do I have?
Yeah.
It's 8-1.
I mean, I think that this is a cigar that absolutely should be in every humidor. You know,
weekly rotation. This
absolutely. It's a great cigar. And it's well priced too. you know?
It's one of the best Cuban torpedoes. I don't think we disagree with that.
Nope.
Belicosos.
Belicosos.
No, we
That's
know
right.
the
We've learned the
difference.
difference.
It's a Belicosos, and it's an outstanding
And it's
cigar.
fine.
All right, boys, an 8.1 for the Bolivar Belicosos Finos. And we'll see you next week.
Keep smoking.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, loungelizardspod, P-O-D, that's loungelizardspod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.